Welcome to Soul Night Live, episode number 92. Today, my guests are Fernando Perdomo and Denny Seiwell. Well, welcome, Denny. It's a pleasure to have you and Fern on the show. Talk
Thank
about
you.
this record that I've been thoroughly enjoying this week, which is out on Cherry Red Records. The good
That's a
folks
good
over
one.
there will hook you up with a copy of this. It's dubbed Ram On, the 50th anniversary tribute to Paul and Linda McCartney's Ram. And it's chock full. Here's the guest list right here. It's a who's who of modern prog and pop and more, and classic good stuff. So thank you both for coming on and chatting about this. Really appreciate it.
Happy Saturday, man. This is
Good.
fun.
Where are you coming from?
I'm coming from Atlanta, Georgia.
Atlanta. All right.
Yeah, way down here in the south.
I was down there a couple of years ago at Lake Lanier.
Oh yeah, it's great up there. You know,
Awesome.
It's a great place to spend some time out on the boat. You know.
Yeah.
Love it.
It's beautiful out there. Last time I hung out with Sean was at the premiere of the movie I'm in, Echo in the Canyon, over at the theater down there. We were doing a theater tour, and we had a great time hanging out. And man, everyone sure is nice down there in Atlanta.
Yeah. Well,
Especially Sean.
that's that Southern hospitality, you know.
Oh, it's fantastic.
It really is. And it's kind of funny because we realized we had a mutual friend that we both played music with over the years. Literally,
Phil Summers.
I was sitting in the theater and I look over in the right to me across the aisle and it's like, Bill, what are you doing here? And it's like, yeah, small world.
Funny story about Bill. Bill and I were in a band called Transcendence, and we did a cover of a song Denny played drums on called Tomorrow.
Oh, really?
So it's it all comes full circle. And I remember just like we all sitting around in the van when we were touring, listening to Wildlife, Red Rose, Ram, and going, man, you know, this is what we want to sound like. And these albums are huge influential records to so many musicians. And you were there when these records were made, Denny, and you know, did you have any idea how influential these records were going to be making them?
No, we were in a van like you guys, and we were singing "Tomorrow." We were both abandoned, sorrow. No, I'm kidding.
That's a question I've never asked you, Denny. Did you guys listen to music on the Wings bus?
Hell no. There's nothing on that bus. We're lucky we had a styrofoam drink thing to hold some water. It was really not. There was no bathroom.
Whoa!
I remember Henry trying to pee off the back one day. You know?
Did you feel like? Did that ever feel like Magical Mystery Tour Part 2?
Only always.
I bet.
Slightly better than Magical Mystery.
A lot of great memories.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. Well, I definitely want to touch on that era before we're done. But I was kind of curious how you two met, and I know you guys have been collaborating for a number of years on and off.
It's a boring story. We met the way most musicians meet in LA. There's this thing called the NAMM convention, which is basically all the major musical instrument companies.
It's a good place to catch a cold.
It's a good place to catch my theory is that COVID came through there, but that's a whole other thing. There was a bunch of companies from that district. So basically the NAMM conventions of all the major musical instrument manufacturers from all over the world come together for a car show type event. And to attract people, they bring all of their artists. And Denny, being a longtime Zildjian DW Remo guy, he's always there. And unlike a lot of the other rock stars, he's very, very friendly and very nice and very accessible. Yeah, and I came up to him one day and I was just very genuine with him and told him I was a huge fan and I would love to work with him. And we kept in touch. He saw me play.
Genuine works.
Yeah, he saw me sit in with Denny Lane. And I was very, you know, I came up to him and his wife and gave him a big hug and said hi and said, we got to work together. So it was about 3 times that we saw each other and said, we got to work together. And finally we worked together and it went really well. He came over to my studio when I was working on the Open Sound project. We did a couple of Ram and Wings songs in the studio and he liked working with me and he liked my drum kit and he liked my room. And it went great. So when I posed the question, Denny, Ram is turning 50. Would you like maybe possibly doing a re-record? He even considered it, and we did it, and couldn't be prouder of our little album that we've put together over a pandemic, which is incredible.
It sounds fantastic, and I really love your production style, Vern.
Thank you.
I felt like I was listening to Pet Sounds or something, where there's all this stuff in there, but it doesn't sound cluttered.
Well, I learned it from listening to I tell everybody that, like, while some people go to Berkeley, some people go to Juilliard, I went to my record store, and records production wise, albums that I listened to that I wanted to emulate kind of taught me how to produce. And Ram was one of those albums that I was exposed to when I was 8 years old, which is exactly the time that I was learning how to play guitar. And listening to that album, I realized what I liked and what I wanted to sound like as a musician. I was enthralled by the guitar playing. I was enthralled by the production, and I loved Denny's drumming. And I was just like, this is who I would like to set out to be, and I read all the books. I watched all the movies, and I was just like, this is the type of career path that I wouldn't mind, working on records like this, and also working on, a variety of things. And Ram is an album that's aged better than a lot of the other McCartney records, because the production is so perfect, because there's no gimmicks. It's really the sound of Denny, Paul, Dave Spinoza, Hugh McCracken, Linda in a studio. A little bit of sweetening from the orchestra, but there isn't like a heavy synthesizer presence, or there isn't any gimmicky, shticky stuff. So the cool thing is that all those songs, they sound as fresh as they do today than they did 50 years ago. So making this new version of the record, we wanted to stick to that aesthetic. So in many ways, it's not just a tribute to the music, not just a tribute to Paul or Linda. It's a tribute to the sound of the record, the production, the sequencing, the arrangements, even the cover art. When Cindy put together the cover art, we wanted it to have a similar feel, homespun yet perfect. And Ram is an album that has a very interesting story, because when it first came out, people were bummed. People were giving it really bad reviews, because Paul was under the microscope, because it's Peter Paul. Sure. And anything that doesn't sound like freaking Let It Be, Yesterday, whatever, is going to be criticized. And in the end, the litmus test of a record is its ability to still be regarded 50 years down the line. And 50 years down the line, Ram is considered a lot of people's, not just their favorite Beatles solo album, a lot of people's favorite album of all time. And we've encountered a lot of people who consider Ram to be their favorite album of all time. And it's quirky. It's not, that's the thing, is that it's not like a greatest hits record. It only had 3 hits, technically, if you include Another Day. But aside from that, there's a lot of interesting album cuts that make it special. Because one of the things that Ram taught me when I was 8 years old, comparing it to other records that I was getting, that made it really interesting, is that it's sequenced like an organic statement, as opposed to, here's a hit. Hey, you like that? Here's a hit. Here's something you could dance to. Here's another song that sounded like track 1. Here's another one. Here's a little ballad. And here's another hit. It's an album that has songs that were designed not to be hits. Stuff like Monkberry Moon Delight, stuff like Three Legs, stuff like, Long Haired Lady. I mean, these are songs that could have been singles, but really were designed to be great album tracks. And one of the things that makes Ram magical is the yin-yang principle. Opens up with Too Many People, which is like a rocker. Then immediately takes a left turn into a porch blues tune, into on a ukulele ballad, which in 1971, the ukulele was synonymous with Tiny Tim and novelty and vaudeville, and to have that go into a Beach Boys thing, you know, and then the big single be a song as over the top and unique as Uncle Albert, you know, which again, it's proof that the power of a good song. There's no rules in rock and roll, and you never know what will be that thing that sticks with people. It's awesome.
That's a good point. You know, just a couple personal thoughts. You know, I'm turning 54 next week.
Oh,
Hey, happy birthday.
Thank you. Yeah, I know it. Hey, but that puts me right at the age when I was about, oh gosh, what year did this come out? 1971?
1971.
So I was 4 years old. I had an older brother who was 16 years older than me. So he was bringing home all the relevant rock of the day. And I remember hearing this around the house. I mean, one of my earliest memories was hearing Uncle Albert, and just takes me way back. So it's cool to hear it even today. It really resonates with me. And I was kind of curious about, this is the one that followed Paul's debut solo record, which was a total homespun affair. So what was his inspiration to go to New York and hook up with session players? Was he like, I'm going to make a really professional record this time around? Was that kind of the mindset he had?
Me?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Well, I believe, I don't know if this for sure. It's like that talk show that I don't know if it's real, but I don't know this for sure. But I believe that it was Linda. You know, Linda growing up in New York, and she was at all the Alan Freed shows. She was born into the history of rock and roll, and I believe she said, "Why don't we go to New York? Come on, we're up here at the farm." She kicked his butt to get him going because of that ugly stuff that was going on with the Beatle receivership and the lawsuit that was going on to try to salvage some money for their efforts. And I think that she just said, come on, let's go to New York. Let's get out of this loop. And you know what musicians always think, that the grass is greener on the other side. So
sure,
they always think the New York guys thought that English musicians were better, and British musicians thought American musicians were better, you know. So it was just one of those things. And I think when he came over here, the way he went about it, he just went to Barry Cornfield, and I think that was his name, Barry, yeah. And he was a guy with his finger on the pulse of the New York musical community. And he said, who are the top drummers? Give me a list of the cats that are doing all the records, and probably got some guitar player recommends for him. And he went about just checking out what he thought was the tops, you know. And that's how I got the job. So I think it was just that whole thing. There's a fascination. If you live in New York, you say, well, I'd love to go make a record with those guys in London. And it's vice versa, you know.
Sure. Well,
I think it was as simple as that.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. Well, the proof's in the pudding. I mean, it turned out beautifully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, you were a full-time session guy at the time, Denny?
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Well, what are some other records we might find you on prior to this one?
I have to look it up.
Okay. I can do that.
John Denver, Take Me to Tomorrow was a great record. I made a record called The Good Foot with James Brown. And later on, I did Janis Joplin and Billy Joel. I produced Billy Joel's first album, Cold Spring Harbor, but McCartney interrupted that, and I had to leave to go back to London to work. But I made a lot of records. In those days, we'd do 3 jingles in the morning. Jingles would, TV or radio commercials would take maybe 20 minutes, half an hour, 40 minutes at most, because you're only doing 30 seconds or 60 seconds of music. So we'd rush into a studio, we'd set up real quick, cut the track, and then go to the next one. And we'd do 2 or 3 jingles in the morning, and then in the afternoon, we'd have a 2 to 5 record date, where sometimes we'd be making R&B records. I remember making one like, a little bit of soap now will wash away those, Paul Davis. We were making all these great records, and you'd make them in a day. They had a special union law written that we couldn't do more than 4 songs in 3 hours. So, because producers would get 8 out of us if they could, you know. So they told the producers, no, you got to pay them for 3 hours, 4 songs, 3 hours. That's no more than that. So, and we were pumping music out. We'd have an afternoon 2 to 5, and then usually a 7 to 10 record date too. That was a typical day in the studios then when it was really happening. And then at 10 o'clock, sometimes you go work in the joints, you know.
Sure.
Go play one of the jazz clubs or whatever.
Yeah.
And then
Now,
get up and do it again.
What studio did this Ram get recorded in?
That was CBS 52nd Street. We did 99% of it there. And then after the project was just about completed, Paul said, come on, you want to just go to LA for a couple of days? We'll go out, and I have a couple more tracks that I wanted to do. And we came out to LA here, and we used Armin Steiner's sound recorders in Hollywood. It was right near the Capitol Towers. And Dear Boy was recorded there, and maybe one other. I'm not sure about that. So
now, did he come in with everything kind of ready to go, or did he have like some songs and other ones evolved as you started recording?
Well, yes and no. He had a great idea. He had most of the songs, I would say 90% complete. And he came in with the song and expected us to do the rest. He was really relying on that New York session man kind of thing. He wanted to hire professionals that could just take what he had and give it that extra little bit, you know. So, but the beauty of it was that he never asked us to play something a certain way or tried doing it this way. Right? He just, he waited until we found parts that he liked, and then we started making takes. And it didn't take very long. It did not take very long.
Okay. How long would you say it took to record everything, beginning to end?
Well, there was 23 tracks, so it would have been 24 days.
Okay. Wow, well, that's awesome.
I mean, because we never spent more than a day on a track, and usually he'd come in. We were there from 9 to 6.
Okay.
Now, he'd come in at 10:30.
I'm sure.
So he shows up at 10:30, and he plays this song and sings, oh, this is the song we're going to do today. And we'd all get excited, you know, well, me and Huey or Spinoza. So we'd get excited and we'd start thinking of parts we could play. And then he'd get on an instrument and we'd set up a pilot vocal for him. So he'd either play piano or guitar, and we'd start playing the song with Paul and finding our parts. And, you know, that would usually take no more than an hour. And after that hour, we would say, all right, you guys ready in the booth? So you guys have sounds up and everything. Let's start making takes. Sure. And we'd never do more than 5 or 6 takes. I don't remember ever going past 5 takes. And we'd usually get it in there. And then we'd take a break for lunch. And sometimes he would let us go after lunch. He would then he'd stay and do vocals and bass. You know, I never heard him play the bass.
Really?
He didn't have a bass in the studio. It was just, so I was responsible for the bottom end, and I had to be careful how my bass drum parts were played. So it was interesting. It was really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I'm wondering about, you know, Uncle Albert is like, I consider that kind of the father of Band on the Run, you know, because they're both these little segmental mini epics.
Right.
Now, were they just like 3 little songs that had nothing to do with each other that somehow got put together? Or do you think it was written with the intent of making it a little suite?
That's all that.
Yeah.
Because we recorded it like one song.
It was ready to go by the time you got to it. So
it was amazing.
We learned it from top to bottom, A to Z. And that's the song that we spent 2 days on. And I'll tell you why, because he asked me, well, something happened. Spinoza was I don't know, something happened there. He was busy or something, but he was the first part on Uncle Albert, and Paul wanted to bring another guy in. Not that he was unhappy with Dave's part or anything, but something happened there with something. And I think it was time. Like Dave asked Dave not to take any other sessions, and And one day Spinoza said, hey, I got to leave a little early. I got this session that I couldn't get out of, you know. And Paul didn't like it. So he asked me to recommend another guitar player. And when I brought Hugh McCracken in, he loved Huey right off the bat. And we redid a whole day with Another Day. What am I talking about? Not another day. Uncle
Right.
Albert. I'm going fast.
Another day on Uncle Albert. There you
Yeah,
go.
that's right.
But,
Yeah, you know,
but the track was had, you know, it started off Uncle Albert and then went to Admiral Halsey and all of that stuff. And we recorded that like a full, like an operatic piece or something. We got all the sections down and we wanted to do it in one take. And so by the time the second day rolled around, Paul and I really knew what we were doing and we had it polished great. And Huey just slid in and fit in like he was supposed to be there. It was just so
awesome.
beautiful.
Yeah. I think a lot of people probably remember him from his days with Steely Dan, you know, Hey 19 and tunes like that. That's Hugh.
Yeah.
You know, and I think he's even on some of the later stuff when they got back together or some of the solo stuff. I can't remember, but I feel like I've seen him.
Well, Hugh's on so many tracks. I mean, everybody that's involved have become, you know, huge session legends, and they were all working. So that's why they were the first call guys for Paul's New York experience. So, you know, and it also really shows in the quality of the parts. As a producer, you know, on this Ram On record, I got to hear all these stories firsthand. And there were some things that were like, you know, bubbles broken where all of a sudden I didn't realize that things like this, you know, you listen to Uncle Albert and it sounds like it's a product of editing, but that's all one take. The drums, the guitar and the piano, that's all one take. That's all guys playing together, which is just phenomenal because, you know, these days, I mean, even us as Yes fans, you know, we know that a lot of that epic stuff was done piecemeal.
Oh yeah, we've heard the stories of the cleaning lady throwing out the edit that they needed and then
yeah, we need take 27 of section C. What the hell?
Yeah, they're literally out that dumpster in
It's
the
on
alley.
the floor over there.
Yeah, yeah.
Next to the waste paper basket.
It's exactly what happened, Denny, and the close to the edge sessions. But another thing that blew my mind is that, you know, Paul's known to be a you know, the typical the fairy tale is that Paul was the kind of like the dictator in the studio of the Beatles, and he was always in charge and telling George what to play and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And it kind of blew my mind that Paul had just met Denny. And they were, he said that like 3 days after his audition, they were in the studio starting Ram. And Paul never once got behind Denny's kit and said, play it like this. He put, in their entire time working together, Paul put all the decision-making of the drum ideas into Denny. And he was always a team player, you know, which is really, really cool because, you know, it takes a while sometimes to warm up the musicians. But immediately, Denny and Paul had a synergy. And, you know, when Paul went back to Scotland and Linda was like, you know, they were like, hey, we should start a band. They probably had a choice of thousands of drummers in England that could have gotten, but they flew, you know, their favorite Yank out of New York, said, come out to Scotland.
That's
the next
awesome.
thing you know, Denny's New York career was sidelined. And he was
Yeah.
a member of one of the biggest rock bands in the world.
That must have been a kind of a, I don't want to say a tough decision to make, but a big one. How did you feel about it when that decision or that choice was offered?
Yeah, it was because I was really clawing my way up to the top of the food chain there in New York. And I went to all of the guys. I said, hey, man, what do you think? Should I take this? Or they said, are you crazy? Get the hell out of here.
It's Paul McCartney. Go.
I think everybody kind of had an idea of what was to come. The session world was going to go through an upheaval. The drum machines hadn't been out yet or any of that stuff. But everybody saw that the scene was changing. And they said, are you kidding? Get out while you can. And you know, I always asked that question of myself, you know, because Hugh stayed and Spinoza stayed. A lot of guys, they did a lot more producing though. And when the business did change and the drum machines and home recording came about and people were doing jingles out of their office rather than studios and studios were closing, when that happened, I was glad that I was gone. So I knew I made the right decision.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a legendary choice in hindsight, you know. So.
Well, you know, you had mentioned, Denny, that Hugh got the call too. and Hugh couldn't make that decision. He was like, I'm busy. You know, he chose Sessions over Wings.
But no, I gotta keep that thing up. Paul wondered why Hugh turned down the invite to join Wings, join the band. We didn't even have a name yet. But Hugh said, "No, I'm sorry, I can't do it." And Paul never probably the first time anybody said no to him, you know.
Probably.
And for years,
It's like,
for years.
No, Paul, I don't want to be in one of the biggest bands in the world. No, Paul, I don't want to play on #1 hits. No, Paul, screw you, bastard. I'm staying in New York.
Years later, man, Paul never found out why. And years later, I'm in New York, a couple of years before Huey passed away, which is, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 years ago. But anyway, I'm in New York, and I go up to Hugh's apartment, and we're sitting there, and he whips out his guitar and his acoustic guitar, and he puts Uncle Albert on, and he's playing all those licks on his acoustic. I was in tears. It was so beautiful. I didn't know that he was going to die a couple of years later, but we were just hanging out, and he told me, "You know why I turned down that invite with Paul?" And I said, "Yeah, you wanted to do your sessions." He said, "No, I had young kids from a prior marriage. I couldn't miss their, childhood and go live in England and be in a rock and roll band with a Beatle." So I told Paul this, and he almost had tears in his eyes, being the family man that he is, It really took a load off of him. It meant a lot to know this. So I thought I was happy that I could do that.
I'm sad I never got to meet Hugh, because he would have probably loved being part of this.
Oh my God. Hugh was a man of way beyond a few words. He didn't say anything. He would just kind of look at you and give you a whole lifetime of talk, in one look. He was beautiful. He was very quiet.
Well,
Very
in many
quiet.
ways, part of me bringing Gordon Michaels into the project is because Gordon was Hugh's protege, and when I found that Gordon Michaels record at Amoeba a long time ago and saw that it was produced by Hugh McCracken, I bought it immediately. And when I heard a song on that record called "Indoor Lovers," which is an incredible track, it sounds like Another Day, and that was his audition. And in many ways, having him on the record kind of is a consolation prize. But Hugh would have been front and center, and it would have been fun to have everybody. But
He was awesome. He was, yeah.
so have you guys found a way to get a copy of this to Paul?
Sure.
Good.
Yeah, you got it.
Paul who?
Paul
That's
Williams.
my line.
Paul Rubens? Sure, he's got it. No.
Yeah, that's right. Well, good.
Yeah, from what I understand, I mean, MPL asked for copies, but there's a funny story. When I first brought this to Denny, he was always down. He was gung-ho about it. The day that we did our first drum session, he showed up with a huge surprise. The thing about Denny is, believe it or not, he's he's an older cat, and he's also a responsible adult. And he texted his friend Paul McCartney and said, "Hey, tell him what you told him."
I just said all these young indie rockers and Generation X kids, they all fell in love with the record Ram, and they want to do a remake of it as a tribute to it. What do you think? And he says, "Good idea. Go ahead and do it." That's all I needed.
He said, "Go ahead, have fun."
Yeah.
And those 4 words were the gasoline behind it. And I've been telling this to people, it made it easier and harder at the same time. Harder because
Paul could hear it.
we know that Paul's going to hear it. Easier because it made us go into extreme gear. And Denny at that point said, "Hey, if I'm going to be co-producing and be part of this, I've got to make final say on who sings what." And that actually made it easier because my original idea was to have 12 songs, 12 singers. And in the end, we had a couple of guys sing 2 songs each because Denny was, completely madly in love with their voices, and they did a great job. And in the end, every decision that was made on this record, I stand behind. I'm beyond proud of it. And the reviews have been great, so.
Well, I think the singers that you chose for each song are really suited to them. And there were times I almost thought I was listening to Paul for a minute. So good choices.
Well, everybody's channeling. Everybody vocally, musicianly wise, everything. It's the thing about this record that sets it apart from other tribute records. Well, first of all, there's three guys that were there when it was made. So it's kind of a reunion slash tribute. And the other thing is, we didn't go for the typical tribute treatment where, hey, we're going to do a tribute to the Monkees. Let's get, this boy band. Let's get this indie rock band. Let's go get this celebrity to sing a song, whoever sells records. In our case, Denny said, well, who should get on this? I thought immediately, who do I know that loves Ram? Not just Beatles fans, not just McCartney fans, people that love Ram. And there's 100 musicians on this record, and all of them, Ram is in their DNA. They didn't have to put on the record to relearn the songs. They knew these songs, they knew the vibe, and the spirit and the passion in the playing is all because everybody on this record probably has a personal Ram story. My personal Ram story was putting this record on when I was 8 years old, hearing too many people and having the top part of my head blow off because it was mind blowing. I was just in awe. And everybody on this record has had those moments, looking back, sitting in the back of their back seat of their parents' car with headphones on, listening to Uncle Albert, or listening to Another Day or all these things. And, Matt Teku, who was the drummer in Echo in the Canyon, he said that watching the James Paul McCartney TV special, which is a special that Wings made during the Red Rose Speedway era, was what made him want to be a drummer. So we had an interviewer say, hey, what were some of your early influences to make you want to be a musician? And I pointed right at Denny. He was there showing me this world that seemed so attractive to me. Oh, you're being creative, performing, having fun. That's one thing about Wings, is that especially when Denny was in the band, they were having massive amounts of fun. And you could hear that joy on Ram. Songs like Smile Away, Eat at Home, Monkberry, Heart of the Country, there's a lot of joy there. And when making this record, a lot of those feelings came back in, because it's like, man, these songs, they deserve this, they deserve this treatment. And to have these new people come in and in some cases sort of fight over it, like everybody wanted to sing. I would ask, Dan Rothschild's a classic example. He was the bass player in Echo in the Canyon. He played bass for Heart. He played bass for Tonic, and he's a record producer. But, I know he's an incredible singer. But I asked him to play bass, and he's like, can I try too many people? And I'm like, sure. And when he sang it, then he said, I don't want to hear anyone else. And he just killed it. And it's like the passion in the way he sang, every performance on the record, it's joyful. Everybody's inspired. Everybody's passionate. Nobody is just doing this because as a favor to any of us. Everybody who's on the record wants to be on the record. Everybody who's received their copy has posted pictures of them smiling, and they're proud of this, as we are,
Sure. And they ought to be. It's wonderful.
It's a beautiful thing.
Mentioning too many people, as the opening cut, I was thinking we could maybe go track by track and kind of have Denny talk about his memories of it originally, and then you guys talk about the new version of each.
Sure.
Does that sound cool? You got time
go
for that?
it.
Okay.
Well, too many people was one of those, when Paul played it, I went, I'm not going to just trudge through this thing. Too many, I thought, why not just break it up and let the song be heard first? As it starts, there's some military, just some military snare drum stuff in the intro and going into it. So it was a chance to break the mold of the day at the time, right off the bat, So that's what I heard, a lot of space in the song. And I'm glad I chose to do that, because it seemed to work really fine.
Sure. It's wonderful.
And then when Fernando got a hold of it, he screwed it all up.
No.
Yeah.
Well,
He
first,
did all the heavy lifting. The music that he recorded for it was perfect. The first time I heard, it was the first track I heard Fernando do on his own without my drums on it, and he nailed it. Just got it all right.
Yeah, first of all, that was my audition because that the drums for that one were recorded back in 2019 for the Open Sound project, and putting that track together was my audition. That's what got the trust for Denny. So when he heard me play those lead guitar parts, it was just like he could tell that I was playing something not only well, but with passion and with joy, because this is a guitar part that I've been obsessed with since I was 8 years old. And it was a pleasure to put that one together. And it really came together great. And when Dan Rothschild sang and played bass on it, it was just, forget about it. It's the ultimate opening track. When you put that track on, it grabs you from second one. And
you just think, this sounds damn good.
Yeah, our version rocks too. It really
it's
does.
It's going to be a great record if this is in.
I think I might have put 2 passes to put the drums on it.
And it came out great.
Yeah, it was so easily done.
And what's cool is that we have a big jam out at the end, which we ended up turning into the slight return at the end of the record.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of fun because it's kind of since we had added Another Day and a One Woman a Why onto it, I felt like it was a way to cap the record off, with having it open and close with too many people somewhat.
I love records that do that anyway. So.
And at the very end, one of the last guys that got on the record was Michael Lockwood, who is an incredible guitar player who played with everyone from Amy Mann, Fiona Apple, Lisa Marie Presley, first call guitar player. And he takes a really cool lead at the end of the Slight Return. It's got a little quote of Dear Prudence. It's a lot of fun, and he's
cool.
Great. And he had, funny enough, he had posted his Ram Shrine. And when I saw that, I'm like, this guy's got to be on this record. He has a Ram shrine.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. It's like, you're in, get over here.
That's the thing is that there's so many people that this record is beyond important to them, and it's amazing. It's such a good record.
It sure is.
Yeah.
It's so good. Something I wanted to
3 legs.
What guitar did you use?
Oh, okay. When I recorded that song, I used my, I think I used my 66 SG, and then I did some overdubs with my Shabbat Telecaster. My Shabbat Telecaster actually was the main guitar I used on pretty much everything on the record, but back then I was using the 66 SG. And little announcement, I'm having a blue Firebird made by my friend, by Sparks Guitar Works, Freddie Sparks.
Okay.
Denny, he's making me a copy of Paul McCartney's blue Firebird, which is going to be fun for live shows.
We can do Road All Night.
Yeah, Road All Night.
So, how many guitars have you bought since you were on the show last time, Fern?
Oh God, I've actually sold a couple. I'm always I love guitars. They're always fun, and I buy them cheap. I buy them very cheap.
I'm a bargain hunter too.
I'm a bargain hunter, and I love guitars, but they're a lot of fun. But the thing about it is that the way I explain them is that they're paintbrushes. That Van Gogh only have one brush, and they all serve a different purpose. But recently, when Carmine came into my studio, I cleared out a huge mess of guitars, and then I brought back the 20 I use the most. And that's pretty much where I'm at with everything else. And I kind of enjoy that, even though I do use everything. Yeah. It's just like specialty guitars, I'll go grab it. But, it's no reason to have a huge mess around,
No, I mean, my house rule is if I haven't played it for a year, it's out of there.
Nice.
Yeah, but then it's supposed to go to another place for 10 years and then say, where did I put that? And then it starts at number 1 again.
Sure.
But that's the incredible thing about Denny is that he brought the same snare he used on Ram, which was his father's snare. And that adds another legitimate thing. So we have 3 original musicians. We have the original snare drum, and Dave Spinoza used his original 52 Telecaster on Another Day. So.
Oh, very nice. Very cool.
It's funny. I asked Marvin Stamm if he used the same flugelhorn when he played the solo on Albert, and he's like, "Oh, I used my new one. Do you want me to recut it with my old one?" I'm like, "No, it's okay. I'm just being anal and being
really?
weird, you know. It was very funny. We had a laugh about that. That was fun.
That's very cool. So tell us about Three Legs.
Well, when I walk, when I
Well,
walk.
I'm trying to the original. I think we Paul played it, and I thought, geez, what the heck can I do with this? So we kind of made this, taped up the cymbals a little bit, did some extra padding on the drums, you know, just made it funky, you know. So we wanted to funkify it a little bit. And at the time we thought, just the way he was playing it, I wanted to make it like a back porch blues thing. And I thought,
Yeah.
really crappy drums like you would do for a reggae track. I used to do that too, you know.
Sure.
So I was thinking, crapify this set of drums and make them sound a little funny. And you were doing it, and then at the end it goes into this funky. We called it a mugwump groove, you know. So we got right into that, and it was just like in a rehearsal. We were learning our parts, and we just naturally went into it. And I think that's the take that was used.
It's such a cool song, and again, it's like, you know, the yin yang is really cool because Too Many People is all polished and rock and roll, and then goes into this, like, the way I always explain Three Legs is it's like an old blues man sitting on a rocking chair on a porch with a very old dog sitting next to him. And it's just like, you know, it's kind of like that character in Living Color with the blues guy where he says, oh, there's my dog, wrote a song about this, go like this. Hee-hee. You know, it's like he sings about anything. So it's like that song kind of had me that vibe. And then when we went to go do the new version, Dirty Diamond, Sam Babayan, we have a song called Death of My Ego that has a similar vibe. So I was just like, hey, Sam, come over and sing this.
Yeah, that's like a band that you're in.
Yeah, it's a band that I've been in since 2014. And Sam is a huge fan. He's an Armenian. And he's a huge fan of blues, slide guitar. He's a really, really cool guy. And he's got this big Eric Clapton voice. And he sang the scratch vocal. And we kept it. I was like, Sam, you're not singing this again.
Go home.
And that's the vocal you hear on this. And that's a first take scratch vocal. And he just, again, you know, Sam is a huge fan of Ram. And he's a huge fan of that song. And he didn't need no lyric sheet. And he came in and just slayed it. And then, you know, that song has this really iconic Linda McCartney, like, you know, answer vocal, right. You know, and she's kind of doing this like kind of gospel thing. And I thought, Durga McBroom of Pink Floyd,
one of your
with that big black gospel voice will be really cool. And we've already known how good it sounds when Sam and her sing together, because she sang on our record From the Stars. And when they both sing together, it's joy, because he's got this big Eric Clapton thing going on and she's got this gospel church thing, and it's just joy. And when Denny played the drums on this new version, he's gotten funkier. You've gotten way funkier, brother, and you slammed it. It was so cool. And at the end, it sounds like a party. We had you know, Shay Godwin, who usually plays drums with Dirty Diamond, playing percussion, and we had Luis Enrique Lopez from the Beatles, Breakfast with the Beatles, playing congas, and you know, there's a big claps, and it sounds like a big party, and that's the vibe we went for. And I feel like I've been reading every review. And this is one where we took it somewhere special, somewhere new. And we had a lot of fun with it. And the joy coming from the speakers is infectious.
Indeed. Indeed. So the title track, just written on ukulele originally, I'm guessing?
Denny has an interesting story. He wasn't aware of the song because it wasn't part of the sessions.
Yeah, it was, I think it was Paul told us at the time that he was sitting around creating jingles for the album. So he and Linda were just in the, you know, one night after the session or something. They were using a floor tom-tom and a foot stomp and a ukulele, just writing some jingles. In fact, I have it somewhere here in my collection. There's a whole vinyl album of these commercials that he wrote. Now hear this, brought to you by Ram, all of this stuff, you know. I can't find it in my collection, but I have it somewhere. And this was one of them. So it was only Paul on this. And we used the version that was done by a friend of Fernando's, who I met when I was doing the Chicago drum show 2 years ago. They invited me out to do my clinic. And what's his name again, Fernando?
Nick Bertling. Nick Bertling.
Nick Bertling, yeah.
Yeah, his dad Steven's watching right now, actually. I see him in the chat room. So
yeah,
hey, Steven.
I met him at the show. He hooked me up with the cymbals that I needed for my clinic and my master class and all that. And I became friends with him. And when I see that he'd already done this track and it was all in the can and we were using it on the record, that just made me so happy.
That's so cool. And yeah, Nick did an incredible cover of this. And my friend Pat Sansone of the band Wilco requested Ram On. And a little part of me was like, you just want to sing Ram On? I mean, he's got one of the best voices in the industry, but that's the one he wanted to sing. And when he sent us his vocals, we knew that this is why he wanted to do it. He sounds so perfect on it. And he's got a beautiful voice. And I love Pat. He is an incredible human being. And when we sent off the CDs to everybody that was on the record. And when he sent back his photo, he took a photo of himself in front of his original Ram poster that he bought when he was a kid. Oh, so again, it's like, this isn't just, hey, Billy Idol, you wanna come sing on this? He's like, what songs are on that album? No, and it's everybody on this. It's not everybody on this record loves it.
You know, some of your peers do a lot of tribute albums, and it seems like they kind of draw from the same well of the same 20 friends of theirs. Bless them, and they do great work. But
yeah,
you know, this isn't like that. This isn't just.
Well, I didn't want it to sound contrived. I wanted, to be a record that's truly about the record and not an ego trip. And I feel like a lot of these tribute records, they're like, hey, how can I make this sound like me? No, everybody brought their own personality into recreating the record with their own personal mojo. And, Ram On, we did it pretty much exactly the same, to the point of like redoing the little take one, and little sounds and like that. But the way that Pat sings it is pure Pat. I mean, if you're a fan of Autumn Defense, his band, and Wilco, he's got the voice. And when he opens his mouth, it's just so beautiful. Now, we did have one little technical problem. He can't whistle, which we had a big laugh about. I can't whistle. Nick can't whistle. So we had to bring in Sam, who had just sung Three Legs from Babayan, and we brought him in to whistle. And we found out that the whistle on Ram On is above the human range. So Paul slowed down the tape, whistled, and then sped it up. Okay. And we did that with Pro Tools. So it sounds exactly like the original record. Because that high note is way above the usual male whistle.
How did you figure that out? Did somebody enlighten you, or was it just?
No, I figured it out because Sam couldn't hit the freaking note.
Right, it's like nobody.
And I was like, okay, let's try slowing down the tape, and it sounded exactly like the original, because the original whistle sounds sped up to me. So again, that's Paul being Paul and always breaking the rules. He was the main guy that was like, hey, let's flip the tape around and make it backwards. Hey, let's use tape loops for this. Hey, it was his ideas a lot in the studio, and he was always being extremely creative with that stuff. So there you go, sped up whistle.
Very cool. And how about Dear Boy?
Well, let's see. Dear Boy was done out here
in LA,
and Paul brought Jimmy Garcia in to produce that track with us. We asked him for some help, so just I think he wanted to get a different take on it,
Where do I know that name from? Was he the guy that did
Chicago?
Chicago, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, and the Buckinghams.
He had the Caribou Studios up in Colorado and all that. He was,
And
I hear there was a lot of snow up there.
yeah, but he was top of his games at the time. And it just didn't work out, but he had some weird ideas about that track. He took half the kit away. We had a big kit that Paul rented, with like, like a Hal Blaine kit with 10 tom-toms. So he took the tom-toms away and he took something else away and he said, okay, this pass, just play what's in front of you. Then he took them away, and on the next pass, he put the rest back. He said, now play what's in front of you again. So he wanted to get some weird stereo effect, which I guess it's okay, but I didn't hear it really. But what was weird that was on the track was there was a part where it went boom, and it was really hard to play on the guitar. So Paul tuned this one guitar and laid it on its side, and I tapped on the strings with really thin timbali sticks, and so we did that again on the record.
Oh yeah,
You know
what, Fern, that reminds me of course.
What's that?
Oh yeah, Tony Levin's.
Tony Levin on Big Time when
Big Time. Actually, no, that's right.
Played his sticks on the string.
Jerry Murata's playing drumsticks on Tony Levin's bass on this one song by Peter Gabriel called Big Time. And to play it live, Tony Levin devised a thing called Funk Fingers, where he actually put drumsticks on his fingers.
Yeah.
That became a big.
You have to take off. You can't forget, because if you pick your nose with that'll be weird. But
a bit of trivia really quickly before Fernando jumps in. But Tony Levin, I played on his first session in New York. It was with Joe Beck, the guitar player, and we put a band together called Aha.
Whoa!
Way before the 80s.
Don Preston from the Mothers of Invention.
Wow!
Awesome.
Joe Beck, myself, and Tony Levin, and we had one of our shows. This is really bizarre. We played the Theater of Living Arts in Philadelphia during the St. Patty's Day parade, and everybody was tripping in those days. This is in the '60s. Everybody was tripping, including us, and we had an interpretive dancer named Meredith Monk, who appeared in red leather shorts and lederhosen, with the engineer's cap and all this. And she would just do all of this crazy dancing on the stage. And we had a little guy over on the side of the stage, a small human being under a beach towel. And at the end of the performance, he would slowly slide across the stage in front of us, and we were tripping already. But when this happened, man, everybody was tripping. You know who that was? That little man was Danny DeVito before he became a big celebrity.
Oh!
I imagine he was dosed also, right?
Oh my God!
Yeah, no, I mean, I got a million of them, kid. This is the
That's
joke.
hilarious.
That's too funny.
Wow. Okay. Denny DeVito. That's incredible. I was not expecting. See, every day I hang out with Denny, we find out something new. But you got to write a book, sir. So Dear Boy is a song that it's a fan favorite. And it's Paul's obvious tribute to Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys, and it's got a real Pet Sounds vibe of all the vocals. And my original idea with that song was to see if all the guys from Brian Wilson Band would sing it, and they're all on it. But at the last minute, we got a vocal from this kid who basically, I asked everybody who should be on this record, and they're like, Adrian Bourgeois. And basically I was like, okay, we haven't picked the singer for these two songs. And he brought in this vocal that just killed us. And it was just like, it had the most emotion. And that was a case where Denny and we were unanimous in saying, okay, this guy needs to sing it. And he beat out some heavies. So I'm really proud of him.
Tell the folks who his dad is.
Well, his dad is Brent Bourgeois of Bourgeois Tag,
right,
who was an amazing band that Todd Rundgren produced. And oh man, they had that song with Lyle Workman. They had that great band, and I don't mind it all. One of the greatest songs of the 80s. Stuff.
If anybody's a fan of Toy Matinee, this is right in the same ballpark.
They were great. So Adrian's got it in the blood. But this version came out fantastic, and it's got some incredible. And this, one of the things again this record's a tribute to every aspect of Ram. And Dear Boy is one of my favorite songs to listen to on headphones. So we made sure that Dear Boy had the same amount of sonic juice to keep things going, and it's a trip to listen to.
No, it's beautiful.
And all the vocals, there's so many incredible vocalists on this. Glenn Burtnick, there's Danny Ayala from the Lemon Twigs. There's Robert Goodman, and then there's Darian Sahanaja, John Montagna, Rob Monfiglio. So and then the female voice on this is a Grammy-nominated artist named Ali J from Dominican Republic. So it's a beautiful mix. It's a beautiful sound, and a big kudos on this record go to our mixing engineer Zach Ziskin, who again, huge Ram fan. And he didn't have to pull the record out and say, okay, let me listen to this. He knew the sound. So it was painting from memory as opposed to, all right, man, we want to make this record sound like this. Listen to this and copy it.
Right.
No, he knew that sound already. So
It's awesome.
we're super proud of it.
Yeah.
And now the big hit.
The big hit. Yeah, which we already touched upon. But if there's anything else you can share, Denny, about Uncle Albert, please do.
Well, okay, I'll share this. That was the one song where Paul asked me to find a different drum part in the beginning, where it's Uncle Albert. So I was just kind of playing a regular beat, and he said, "Can you break it up a little bit so that it leaves more room for the vocal?" And so I thought, well, why don't I do something like this?
Hey!
And it went boom.
Oh no.
So that little thing made all the difference in the world for the track. And he loved it. I loved it. The fans loved it. So
Yeah.
Hey, dude, #1 hit. You can't, it's a hard thing to write a #1 hit, and that song was huge, and it's a part of all of our DNA. And when it came to picking the people for it, I was like, man, my friends Bebopalula are perfect because they're a young band with 4 singers, and between the 4 of them, they got all the parts down, and they did a great job. And then when it went to do the horns and strings, we had our string girl, Caitlin Wolfberg. We had Brian Wilson's horn guy, Probin Gregory. We had my friend Everett Kelly. But when we were like, okay, who played the trumpet solo? Marvin Stamm. I Googled him, and I found his website, and it had a little thing that said, contact me. And all of a sudden, he writes back. I put him in touch with Denny, and it's like 45 years didn't pass because all of a sudden they're talking again. They're friends again. And next thing you know, I'm there teaching Marvin how to record his trumpet or his flugelhorn with his phone because he had no recording gear, and sends me back the solo, and it's amazing. So there he is playing his trumpet solo again after 50 years, and it sounds incredible. And he's like 80. He's a lot older. So thanks, Marvin.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
No doubt.
What a pleasure.
Yeah.
And now for something completely different. Smile Away.
Yeah.
Oh, Smile Away was just, in those days, I was doing some significant rock recording in the New York studios, but there wasn't a lot of shuffle stuff. I didn't really learn to play a shuffle. Even with Paul, I kind of worked on it a lot with Wings and all that. But later on in life, I used to fill in with Kenny Wayne Shepherd's band when Chris Layton couldn't do it. And I found out there's 3 types of shuffle. Today, I shuffle my ass off. I know how to play a shuffle. Knock you in the dirt, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I love to play a shuffle. And so I've had 50 years to think about the original shuffle, which kicked ass. It was really a great shuffle on the original Smile Away. But this one today was even
Better.
deeper.
Yeah.
Even deeper, yeah.
And
And
Yeah,
so,
Denny, there's a lot of growth there. I mean, Denny was already a badass when he was 28, but 50 years later, he's on top of his game. And, I've had the luck of working with a lot of people in his age group, but Denny's got, you know, a certain youthfulness to his entire demeanor. He's even, you know, I have to keep up with him sometimes. You know that when we went to go do this record, I didn't want to expose him too much. So, you know, with COVID and everything. So we did it in 2 sessions, and he did 8 songs in a day.
Awesome.
78 years old, cut 8 drum tracks in a day, and he didn't break a sweat. It was amazing. So, and this was one of them. And the groove is deep. We chose the really great bass player named John Montagna, who absolutely slayed the bass part. And then he brought in his friend Davy Johnstone to play some guitar. And oh my God, he played an incredible part. Yeah.
Iconic.
I can imagine.
And,
Yeah.
and then we had this guy named Timmy Sean, who sang his ass off. He sang 2 of the hardest songs on the record, which is Smile Away and Monkberry Moon Delight. And I joked with him. I said, if you see blood on the mic, stop. Because I didn't want him to hurt himself.
Yeah.
But he's got one of those great rock and roll voices, and he just killed it.
Those are a couple gutsy tunes. So.
Yeah, and it's Paul at his most unhinged. And it's a lot of fun. It's a great song. And our friend Joey Sykes from the Babies played on it. We had a bunch of great singers, great piano players. Arlen Files, who from Asbury Park, is his birthday 2 days ago, I think, played some piano on it. So it's a joyous collection of Ram fans. And that, you know, I never thought I'd ever be on a record with Davy Johnstone, being a huge Elton fan for my entire life. And
oh yeah, man.
I can't, if you don't smile when he starts playing the slide, you're a dead man.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Love it. Love it. I'm looking high, I'm looking low, looking everywhere I go. Looking
in a home in the heart of the country. Well,
somebody give me a good night's sleep, damn it.
I always
that track, you know, that track I didn't play regular drums on.
Oh.
And when we got to that and Paul was singing it, I thought, oh, wow, this is Scotland. So why don't I do something a little different here? So I rummaged around the studio, found a plastic waste paper basket, and I taped the bass drum pedal to it. So that was the bass drum. And then I taped up my dad's 12-inch, really thin hi-hats. I just happened to have them in my case. So I taped them up so that they were almost dead. And I took a very thin piece of sheet metal that would be like from an outboard gear or something. Very, very thin. And I put it on the snare drum, would probably put a towel under it or something, or braced it anyway, and played brushes on it. So that's what I used on that part. And then a little crash cymbal. But
that's so cool.
So it was quite unique. If you listen to the original, it's a little different. On this one, I just used regular drums, and we went for it, you know. And I like both versions.
Yeah, they both have their own charm. I joke with everybody that Heart of the Country is kind of like an early Americana track. And it's funny that, like, you know, this full-blooded British guy playing what I consider Americana music, because, you know, it's a down-home acoustic porch song again, and the vibe of it is just pure gold. And I love that version that he does in the photo session scene again with James Paul McCartney, where he's just playing on that big Everly Brothers Gibson acoustic, and Linda's taking photos of him and singing harmony. It's such a joyous moment, and that song rules. And again, Dan Rothschild, talk about yin and yang. He sings Too Many People in Heart of the Country, and both of them he sings with perfect feel and just passion, and it really comes across great. And he played the big upright bass on it. He played the same bass he played on Sheryl Crow's Globe Sessions, which won a Grammy. And he's a great bass player, and the vibe there is amazing. And then I did do some interesting deviations. There's a really cool lick that reminds me of When I'm 64, a very cool turnaround. And I called my friend Zach Lodmer, who is a bass and regular clarinet player, and he doubled the bass with clarinet, and it sounds really cool.
Nice.
And our friend Jason Burke played the Telecaster part, which is really beautiful on it. And then Stephen Flint, great acoustic fingerstyle player, played acoustic on it. And it's got that iconic moment where Paul is doing his best George Benson and scatting with himself. And
Yeah.
you know, we had a bunch of guys try this song. Like one of the suggestions that Denny was like, do you know any good country singers? Maybe we could take the key down and do it. And that's the thing that really separates a lot of these singers, is that it's not, it starts off as like a country song, but that scat section is next level. And that's, again, Paul being such an incredible musician. And some of the notes that he hits on that scat section is like bebop,
Yeah.
The phrasing is bebop. So leave it to Paul to come up with something as unique as a country song with a bebop section,
A bebop scat section.
Yeah, it's very cool.
That is different, no doubt. Milkberry Moon Delight. Now, was this some kind of cheap wine or something for starters?
I hope so.
Yeah, it sounds like Mad Dog 2020, but
there's a rumor going around that it's a milkshake.
Okay, well, that sounds better. Kind of like a black cow, but something.
There's a lot of rumors about that song. There was some hidden meanings and all that crap. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, we had a review come out today saying it's ganja.
Well, Paul was a fan, if I'm not mistaken. So
yeah,
no,
never.
But I will tell you something. One night we used to hang out in London when we were Wings. We'd go to the Speakeasy, some discos, and there was one that we went to called Tramps. I'll never forget this night. It was kind of an upscale disco, and we're all in there. The band's in there, and there's a few guests with us. One of them was Peter Sellers, and Milkberry Moon Delight comes on the system. Just blaring loud Milkberry Moon Delight, and Peter, I didn't know it, but he was a hidden drummer inside, and he started banging on these little round drink tables and around the couches and stuff. So he's slamming his hands until he was damn near bloody. They probably were bloody, but it was to Milkberry Moon Delight. So that's etched in my memory. So I want to leave that just the way it is.
Peter, Victor Clouseau.
Yeah, Victor Clouseau drumming on.
And I was with him later on. And when I left the band, I came back to London in '74, and I did the Tommy Opera with the Who, the London Symphony Orchestra. We did 4 nights performance. Keith Moon was Dirty Uncle Ernie. Mary Clayton was the Acid Queen. Daltrey was Tommy, of course, and Peter Sellers was in the cast too. So I got to hang with him a second time.
That's too cool.
Amazing.
I love that record. If there's one record that had an influence on me at an early age, it was that one. And I didn't know what the hell it was about, and it's probably just as well I didn't. But damn, I like the music. The minute that needle hit the groove the first time, it's like
around the time that I was in love with Ram, I was in love with Tommy. And
I hear you. It's that same kind of. Yeah,
it's a fascinating record. There's a lot of information for an 8-year-old to take in, but I was so in with that record, and it's a great stereo record too. So when it came to doing Milkberry Moon Delight, this is the one that has the biggest cast because it's got so many backup vocals. So this is the one where I started getting all my friends to come in and join in, and even Cindy, my girlfriend who did the artwork, she even sings on it. And there's a 10-year-old singer on the record. Her name is Beatrix, named after the Beatles, Batrix. And she is the daughter of Morty Coyle and Jodie Sweetin of Full House. Okay. And she sings great. And she's singing backup along with her dad. So we have a 10-year-old on one end, and we have an 80-year-old flugelhorn player. So the age range on this, the way Denny sold the record to Paul was like, there's all these young musicians that want to do the record. Oh no, we got lots of 40s, lots of 50s, lots of 60s, lots of 30s. We got people of every age. So it's a lot of fun. And again, Timmy Shawn knocked this one out of the park. And it has the same urgency and just sheer insanity. And I read somewhere that Paul did like dozens of takes to get this. And it's the same story of when Paul was singing Oh Darling. Paul goes for it, on these crazy tunes. And my banana is older than the rest, and my hair is a tangled libretto, Toretto, whatever. It's crazy. It's a great song.
Yeah, it is.
And It's a fun jam. It's another one that has a party atmosphere. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, this next one could apply to what we did for the past year. We ate at home.
Yeah. We did everything at home. We made this record at home. So
that was a Paul and Linda Scotland tune. And I don't remember much about the original date, but yeah, that was a lot of fun. I heard a version of that was on some movie too, I think.
Cool. Well, that track always screams Everly Brothers to me. You know, the way that they're singing together, you know. And there's a local band out here in Los Angeles called Dead Rock West, which is Cindy Wasserman, the sister of Rob Wasserman, the famous bass player that worked with everybody. He was a famous sideman for Jerry Garcia, and upright bass player. And her partner in the band is Frank Lee Drennan. And when they're both on one mic together singing, it has the same vibe. And it was perfect casting. Nobody else tried it, and they just killed it from take one. And Jeff Perlman, my other guitar playing foil in Echo in the Canyon, he produced that track and he mixed it, and it sounds fat. It sounds great. Really, really good stuff. And Denny laid down another case where he played it better, I think, now. So it's pure joy, and it's a lot of fun. It's got some great rollicking piano from Philip Harlow Piano of Iron Butterfly.
Awesome.
And DJ Bonebreak, who usually drums with that band, played percussion. He was an ex. And David Carpenter played some great bass on that. And, you know, these are all people that love the record, and we're just excited to be on it. And the joy that's coming off that track is infectious. So.
Now, Fern, are you on every track, or are you just on some?
No. I'm not on Eat at Home. So, you know, I mean, there's a few things I was selfish about. I really wanted to play the guitar part at the end of Backseat of My Car. I really wanted to play Too Many People because that's my audition. And then everything else was just, you know, little parts here and there. But I was very open to having other guitar players, and I gave up all the bass parts. You know, I love playing bass, so you know, I gave up all the bass parts except for one little bit.
Except for when we got Will Lee, a buddy of mine, we got Uncle Will to play on Woman Oh Why, and he did a great part. But Fernando heard this thing at the end, and he said, "I'm going to be on the track with Will Lee. I'm going to put some fancy stuff." Oh, I did it wrong. Okay, go ahead.
You did it wrong.
All right.
You missed some of the stuff I was doing, and you said, "Can you just put it in at the end?" So at the end, there's two bass players because you liked my riffing.
Oh,
I'm doing the little Paul McCartney stuff on the top. So there's two bass players at the end.
Oh, cool.
Which is a lot of fun.
Listen for that.
Yeah, and Will's amazing. I mean, come on.
Sure.
Will Lee is a super legend.
You know, everybody knows him from the Letterman show for.
Yeah, but he got to play on everything, and he played on some iconic shit. You know, he's
Fab Four too. I don't know if you've ever heard the Fab Four.
Oh yeah,
his Beatles.
I mean, it's the Beatles. The Beatles could not do what the Fab Four did. Every overdub on every record, they do complete records. Every time they come out, he'd call me up, and I'd have to go down and sit in with him. And I didn't know what the hell they were going to call. I didn't know the Beatle parts. I was busy making records, you know. So it was a great treat for me. But I'm so happy he was on the record.
Yeah, and Will turned in a beautiful part, and he's a wonderful human being, and really couldn't be more excited to have him on this. But we're getting ahead of ourselves because he's on Oh Woman Oh Why. But
yeah,
so very cool.
Next up, a long-haired lady.
Oh well, this is a classic Paul and Linda dual vocal, and it's a beautiful track, and you know, it's another fan favorite, you know. And Linda gets her first lead vocal.
Let me talk a little about Linda's singing, because I think, you know, if I remember correctly, there was like you know the story where they're doing the White Album, and he's like, "I can't hit that one note. You're a girl. You try it." Was that the first time she ever seriously sung?
Mm-hmm.
And after that, just hang out with Paul, singing around the house and whatever. She grew into the singer that we knew.
Yeah, but we didn't. You know, during Ram, we never heard her sing. She was in the in the control room with the kids making tea.
Oh, right.
She hardly ever came into the studio. She'd come into the studio and she'd take some pictures.
Yeah.
But all the vocals were done after McCracken or Spinoza and I were gone at night. They would do the bass, the part, the vocals and all that stuff. So I didn't know that she was going to be singing on this, to tell you the truth, you know, till I got a box of records and I put them on the turntable and I said, whoa, this is a little more than I expected to hear. So
Yeah. Well, the blend of her and Paul's voices just became a classic kind of thing, you know.
Yeah.
Well, it's a classic example of, you know, the whole thing now with American Idol and The Voice annoys me because it's a technical competition as opposed to vibe. You know, it's who could sing the best, the most in tune, the best runs. And, you know, I'll take vibe over musicianship. You know, like I'm not a huge fan of shredders and not a huge fan of the guys on YouTube. They're like, look how fast I could play this. Look how smooth I could play this. And Linda's a perfect example of the right voice. And they just sang great together because they were always singing together on the farm. And, you know, those voices just sound great together. So I was thinking when casting the new record, who would be a really good power couple to sing this? And I thought of Rob Bonfiglio and his wife, Carney Wilson, the daughter of Brian Wilson from Wilson Phillips. And they sang this amazing together. And as a little added bonus, they had their daughter Lola sing with them. So Brian Wilson's daughter and granddaughter on the record, which I think is a real nice thing because that's Paul's idol, you know. So, you know, it's giving back to the story. And, you know, love is long. And so is Long-Haired Lady. It's funny, when I sent that song out to radio, Rodney Bingenheimer's producer said, can you do a radio edit of this? Because we're not going to, you know, Rodney doesn't play anything that's over 3 minutes. And Rob did a little radio edit for it, and they've been playing it every show. So
it's awesome.
It's really cool. It's a cute song. I mean, Linda sounds adorable on the original record. You know, it was her funny, like, you know, her funny voice. And Carney did a great job on this one. So go Carney.
Yes, that's awesome. All right. Ram on
Reprise. Yeah, you know.
Yes.
You know what's really interesting about Ram on Reprise is that it fades in at the exact point that Ram on 1 finishes. So Ram on is technically one song that's about 3.5 minutes, but it's cut in half. So the way that it works is you cut it in half and you put one part in the end. So we did the exact same thing, and luckily on the box set they put the unedited track, so we were able to use that as a template for building the song. So it's just more of the same, but it's actually very cool that it happens twice.
Now, was every song on this record done in the original key?
Yes, mostly. 2 songs were brought down a little bit.
Well, we'll let people guess what those were.
Yeah, we'll let you know. Well, you'll win a free CD or something if you write me and say, "Hey, Fern, it's this one and this one."
That's right.
But most of them were done in the original key, and then there was one song, well, which we're about to get to, which somebody did a really good version, and then it turned out that they had taken the key down, and I said, "We can't do this because we have strings and horns that were done," and he missed out. So it ended up working out fantastic because, well, first of all, Backseat of My Car.
Yeah, now this is, to me, seems like the other kind of little epic tune on it.
Undoubtedly one of Paul's best songs.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's lists that people make all the time of what McCartney songs would have made great Beatles songs. And this is always at the top of the list. This is Abbey Road quality. Let It Be quality. You know, it's a big song. So what was it like making Backseat of My Car originally back in 1970, Denny?
That was probably one of the ones that we spent the full day on because, you know, it had all the sections and different tempo changes and what have you. So there was a lot to remember and a lot to learn before we started making takes because it wasn't an unwritten rule, but we all seemed to want to get it in one take. We didn't want to break it up and have edits and all that stuff. This is 1970, 71, and you know, engineers with suit and tie, like staff engineers at CBS, and 16 tracks. I mean, we really wanted to do this thing so that it flowed from beginning to end. It was a one-take thing, and there was a lot to remember there with all the different parts, and I loved playing it. It was when it went to all these different grooves, I could just get on the toms and do all my silly stuff that I could break the mold one more time, and at the end there's this big hold, and then I bring everything back and it was yaga digga digga digga, and it comes in and it finishes up. When I do the clinics, sometimes I do drum clinics, and sometimes I'll do it at Beatlefest too, where I'll do a Ram clinic. And you know, the space between the last note and where that drum solo starts is like 5 3/4 beats. It wasn't done to click. There was no clicks anywhere on this record, but sure, it wasn't done. It was a feel thing. And every time I do it, I would blow it, because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, go. You know, one time I nailed it, and I came in exactly on the, I mean, and the fans went, everybody jumped in the air, you know, me too, you know. But it was really amazing. So that track was, and I got my friend Brentley Gore, who's a guy I worked with out here in LA. I tried to do some demos with him. I thought he was huge talent, and he was being overlooked by the record industry at the time. And he moved back to Nashville, where he's from. And so when I called him up, I said, "Hey man, you're in Nashville now. How would you like to sing on Hard the Country?" He says, "That's a nice track, but I'd like to sing on Backseat of My Car." I said, "Really?" I said, "That's the hardest one of the bunch." He says, "Yeah, I know, but I think I can do it." So I said, "Okay, man." We sent him the stuff, and he gets diagnosed with COVID the night before. He gets a positive test. He gets up in the morning, and he does all the parts before COVID hits. Hallelujah. Huh?
And he absolutely slays it.
He got the part perfect. We loved it. And he got sick. Wasn't bad. He got through it. His whole family got sick. Everybody got through it. Everybody's fine today. So thank God that he had.
Yeah, and that's one of my favorite tracks on the record. That's one of my favorite tracks on the record. We just posted, one of the things that makes our record really, really cool is that I'm such a stickler to real sounds. Like, all the keyboards are real, all the pianos are real, all the organs are real. And then when it came to strings and horns, I wanted to hear that bow. I wanted to hear that horn. And we got Caitlin Wolfberg, who's this 5 foot tall, really, really cool, just like young 20 something. She's my favorite string player, and she multi-tracked herself into an orchestra, and it sounds incredible. And then we had Probin Gregory from the Brian Wilson Band, Everett Kelly, who's only 23 years old, and they did the horns. And I just posted on my YouTube the separate horns and strings from that track, and it sounds amazing. And I said, "Denny, close your eyes and imagine you're at that sweetening session again." And it sounds really cool. And Denny was there when they recorded the orchestra, and he has a great story about Paul tuning the strings.
Oh yeah?
No, the orchestra, yeah.
The whole orchestra.
Well, we were up at A&R at the Phil Ramone's studio, A&R Studio 799 7th Avenue, 7th floor. I love that room. It's a great big room. So Paul was in it with the orchestra. He called me up and he said, "Hey, if between dates or something, you stick your head in and check out the sweetening dates." So I came in just to check it out. I forget what they were doing, but I heard from some of the guys. I said, "Well, how's it going?" And they said, "Well, you know, this is the David Nadian string section, like this, the hot symphony guys, the best of the best in New York." And it's probably, I don't know, he probably had close to 40 people in the studio. And so I'm talking to a couple of my buddies, and they said, how was it? And he said, "Well, Paul came in and he spent about a half an hour tuning the orchestra." And we all thought, "What the hell is that? You know, like, we know how to tune ourselves. We play with the symphony, and you know." But he has a specific thing. He said, "No, trombones, you still sound a little sharp to me." So he retuned everything to his pitches that he hears in his head. And they said that they did the track, they cut the track, they went in and they listened to the playback, or they had the speakers in the studio listening to the playback, and they said, I'll be damned if it didn't sound like the London Symphony. It had something uniquely different about it, you know, and that's the way he was. He used to tune his bass out of tune and play it in tune to get a certain sound. I watched him with George Martin saying, well, now here in this section, I like the trombones voiced like this. And I like the violas voiced like doo-doo-dee. You know, how does a man that doesn't know how to write music do that?
Yeah, that's an incredible thing that Paul never learned how to read music, and he's there, you know, bossing around all these Juilliard guys with their glasses and, you know, their clean cut looks, and they're all looking at each other like, who is this twat?
And then later they're like, damn, he knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
You know, maybe we should tune like this all the time.
Blew everybody's mind. Yeah.
It's so cool. But that track is a mind blower.
Yeah, it's such an epic
Ram starts and stops, and Ram starts and ends so strong.
Yeah.
And Matt, by the time that drum hit happens at the end, that drum fill, and Paul's screaming his ass off again. And that's another thing that's like, we had guys that sang the whole song great, you know, all the croony parts, all the, you know, ooh, you know, it's beautiful. But then at the end, they had to sing falsetto, you know, because they couldn't sing those, just couldn't scream. So Brentley was a perfect case of a guy that could sing the beautiful part and then also scream his ass off at the end. So now a funny story is, towards the end of the session, I had some people that I really wanted on the record, and I got radio silence until we're literally mixing the record. And a guy from one of my favorite bands wrote me and said, I want to sing Backseat of My Car. And I said, sorry, Denny already picked the singer for that. And he never wrote me back.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, you know, one of those cases where if that guy would have sung it, he would have been the #1 person that they mentioned. Hey, the new album featuring blah, blah, blah. But you know what? I'm going to put my foot down. We made the right choice.
Yeah, well,
he would have done a good job, but Brentley already sealed the deal.
Well, timing's everything, even for the big.
Timing is everything, because, you know, it's like, you know, when I reached out to people, there was two things. There's either people that were too eager, or people that were just like there was this one guy that I really wanted to be on the record, and he's like, okay, I've been singing these songs for 3 days straight. I'm not good enough. He didn't even try, because he was so intimidated, because it's Paul, you know, and I wish he would have at least given it a shot, but I totally understand, because the neurosis of these songs already being perfect, you don't want to screw that up. And, you know, but some people, they were overeager. They were like, you know, they sang 5 or 6 songs, you know, they were like, I want to do this, you know, and luckily most of them came in, but, you know, in the end, I'm 100% happy with all the choices that were made on the record.
Well, they all seem very inspiring.
But then we decided that we wanted to include the Another Day single.
Yeah, what's the story behind Another Day, and how does it relate to Ram or not?
Well, it was the first track you cut.
Yeah.
It was the first track you cut.
In the original session, yeah.
Okay.
Paul came in, and it was Spinoza was the first guitar player. And Paul just came in and we thought, oh, great. And then it went so sad, and it went to 3, you know, and we said, oh, okay, that's a nice little twist for you.
Right.
So, you know, we learned the song and we cut it, and I'll be damned if that was the first record that we cut, and that came out, I think it came out before the album.
Yeah, this was the first actual Paul McCartney single, because that's something that's really interesting, is that he didn't release any singles off of McCartney, including Maybe I'm Amazed. They were never singles. So the first Paul McCartney 45 was Another Day, Backed with a Woman, Oh Why.
I think it gets more airplay than just about anything we ever did.
Yeah. It was the first track on Wings' Greatest, which was interesting.
Was it? Was it?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we were talking about that.
I mean, when we did it, you know, now we're doing it for the Ram On project. I called Spinoza up and I said, come on, because I used to kid Spinoza about being McCartney's half a guitar player. He only did half or less than the album. So I said, come on, here's a chance to catch up. And you want to do it? And he said, I'd love to, man. So we sent him this stuff. And he put, he remembered that he put 6 different parts on that, the original album, the track. And so he used the same guitar from the 71, and he remembered those parts and he put the parts on. So if you close your eyes or you know, if you've heard Paul's voice, it would be the track.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the closest one we got.
Yeah. And then there's a couple of sections where there's some sound effects. And our friend again, Luis. Yeah. Well, no, actually, no, that's our friend. That's actually, it's a very interesting story on that one. That's a part that I've always loved, and I thought it was tempo blocks, but it's actually
little cowbells that I had.
Yeah, but we did it on a synthesizer. Don't
say that.
Yeah, no, we did it on a Moog synthesizer though. It was a Moog synthesizer, and it came out fantastic. But Josh Weinstein played that on a Moog synthesizer, and it sounds exactly like the record. And that's one of the things that one of the reviews said. Even those little sounds, you know, you guys nailed. But there's a section where there's hooting and hollering, and that's our friend Luis Enrique Lopez from Breakfast of the Beatles going, up, whoop, whoop. You know, it's really cool.
Yeah.
But
if you look on some of like that on the box set, that video that came out of the live shows, to the right of my floor, Tom Live, was a little stand with 3 cowbells on it. Doot, doot, doot. That's those 3 cowbells. And I used them on so many records. On Art Garfunkel's 99 Miles to LA. Bloop, bloop, bloop. I mean, they're on a ton of records, man.
Do you still have them?
I hear it on a record, I'm like, holy shit, I forgot about I did that.
Do you still have them?
Sure. Oh yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
God. We went through all that trouble, you know, programming a Moog synthesizer to do something you could have done. We're doing it over again. We're calling the label.
No, you could have
destroy all the copies. We got to do this again.
You could have a special deluxe edition with the original boom, boom, boom.
But I'll tell you something. Your version was as close as I thought there was my cowbells. It was actually the same pitches.
Yeah. Well, you know, Josh Weinstein. He put in a lot of extra time on that, and he sent back. I was like, it's still not right, and he spent a little more time on that, and he sent back the perfect ones, and it sounds amazing.
I didn't know this.
Really cool. Josh is awesome. And then we also had John Montagna play the bass on this, and he put a little extra time getting all the notes right, and he killed it. Absolutely.
Speaking of extra time,
when Denny mentioned to one of his very famous friends that he was going to do this, he first said in a very British accent, well, who's playing bass? And we got a pretty good set of bass players. You know, Dan Rothschild, Derek Frank, Zach Schaefer, Roger Hudai, John Montagna, David Carpenter, Teresa Cowles, and one of my favorites, freaking Jennifer Jo Oberly. And all of them are Paul devotees, and they nailed it. They just nailed it. And it's one of those things where it's like, you don't want to blow a Paul McCartney bass line on a Paul McCartney tribute record. So they put in a little extra effort, you know, praying to the bass gods.
Absolutely.
Times.
Well, it's really cool to have that included in there, because that's another pretty big, well-known hit.
Which one?
Another Day.
Yeah, Another Day. It's a great track.
That's a good inclusion. Now, what's the story with Oh Woman, Oh Why? Was it another single that was kind of done separately?
It was the B-side of that
song. The B-side of Another Day. Oh, that's right.
And it's a real rocker.
Yeah.
It starts off with a Denny Seiwell drum solo.
Yeah, you got one of my favorite modern singers to sing on it, too, Eric Dover.
Eric Dover from Jellyfish.
Yeah.
Well, that was it. I'll let Fernando, but when we were doing that originally, you know, we'd had all of these tunes. I don't remember where this was in the sequence of the recording, but when he brought this one in, it was total different animal, you know. And so he's playing this rocker, and I'm saying, whoa. So how do you want to start it? He said, let's just start at bass. So yeah, okay, man, you got. So I'm slamming and ding 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 ding. You know, it knocked me out, man. And then I was teasing him. I went over to see him in England after his wife died, after Linda passed away. We went over to spend some time with him, and we were at his studio, and I said, "Yeah, you had a gunshot on the record." He says, "Yeah, we had a gunshot." I said, "You never had no drums?" He said, "No, I wouldn't have a drummer around a gun." So anyway, but then later on, Fernando found out it wasn't a gun; it was a starter pistol. But that track was so
You told me it was a starter pistol.
outrageously different than the whole album, and I loved it. He loved it too. I mean, we were talking about it that day in his studio, and I sat down. I have a little video of he and I in his studio, and I started playing the drum part to "Woman Oh Why," and he goes, "Oh, Woman Oh Why, yeah, man, that was great." And they'd just gone across the ocean in the Ile-de-France and some cruise ship. That's how they came over to make that record and everything. It was such a cool memory and everything. So when we got to it, by the time,
Paul came to America on a cruise ship?
Yeah.
To make Ram?
Yeah.
On a cruise ship?
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
That's funny.
You haven't seen I have this 15-minute video of Paul and I in his studio that's going to blow your mind completely when you see it, And,
so Paul McCartney gets on a cruise ship, takes a week?
Yeah.
He does the Titanic trip.
Yeah. No jet lag.
To go make a record. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like having a vacation on your way to your job,
It's just a holiday.
Mhm,
That's so funny. That's a complete other layer of cool.
Yeah. The other thing was, I'll never forget one night it was Friday night, rush hour. We were finishing up the day, and it was raining cats and dogs, and Paul couldn't get a limo to pick him up, him, the wife, and the kids, to take him home. They couldn't get a limo, couldn't get anything, couldn't get a cab. And I had a cab company that I used to deal with because I had an account with them. I could take my trap case and a cymbal bag and go in one of those checkers, and I had more room in it, and you'd give them a couple bucks extra on the account for each ride, and you'd have a car whenever you needed it in New York.
Wow.
Big deal. So I'm sitting there, and Paul's in the studio, and he's like all pissed off. And I said, "What's up?" He says, "I can't get home, and it's raining, the traffic's crazy, and I can't get a ride home." I said, "Wait a minute." Called Lomto Cabs. I said, "Hey, I got Paul McCartney down here, 52nd Street. Here's the address. Can you pick him up?" He said, "Tell him to go down front. I'll be there in a minute."
Awesome.
He thought that I was the mayor of New York, man.
Denny Seiwell owns this town.
Badass.
Man, but there's so many times that you were a badass in front of Paul, and it's all about that drumming, dude. And that intro on "Oh Woman Oh Why" is a badass intro. And I remember, actually, Cindy is here. I playing her the new version and the old version, and saying, "This is Denny at 28. Doom, ba, doom, doom, ba. Check it out. Press the little button. This is Denny now. Boom, ba, doom, boom, ba." And it's like, yeah, that's my boy.
That made it so easy for me to do it. You've got some beautiful old drums there, mic'd up properly. You know how to get great sounds. It was so easy for me to come in and whack away.
And there I am, 5 feet away from one of my childhood legends, playing the songs that made me want to play music. And I'm a lucky boy. All I can say, I'm pitching myself daily because it's an incredible experience. And
But then we had the dilemma of Eric was wonderful, but there were parts of it that weren't as strong as other parts. And Fernando had the brilliant idea of bringing in this girl, Lauren Lee.
Yeah, Lauren Lee.
And
my original idea.
So it was a male point of view, and then the female point of view, and oh man, it just worked out ideal.
Because I had thought maybe it'd be fun to have a gender switch on this one, and have it be a song about a girl getting shot by her girlfriend.
Right.
But in the end, it ended up being, now for the first time ever, both sides of the story, where Eric gets shot by Lauren because he's been a cheating fool. And I can't wait to play this live and see them sparring at each other, because it's going to be fun. And talk about two powerhouse singers. And Eric is a monster and Lauren's a monster. So this track rocks, man. And some of the reviews have said that this is their favorite vocals contribution on the record. So
So
We did good.
You think
Huh?
you want to do this record live sometime soon, huh?
Well, we have been all very fortunate to see that the world seems to be opening up a lot faster than we thought. So why not?
Yeah, do it. Do it. I think that'd be
Denny said, as long as I don't have to set up my own drums, I'll play anywhere. So
there you go. Well,
I'm sure he'll find plenty of people to help him out because
just rent the
Denny's a
Roxy
god
from there or
amongst
something.
men. And also, going back to what we talked about in the beginning of this, I meet a lot of rock stars at NAMM. Nobody was as human and accessible and kind to me as Denny.
That's because I'm not a rock star.
Dude, you're a freaking rock star. You're a freaking legend. You've played on so many incredible tracks and you played on the soundtrack of our lives. So we're all very fortunate that you're still here. You're still healthy. You play like a freaking motherfucker still, and you rock, man. And you're a great hang. We've done a lot of hanging out, doing interviews and stuff. And man, every time we're like in between interviews, he's like, let's jam, because he's got 2 drum kits set up. And we do double drumming jamming, and it's fun, man.
Awesome.
It's great. He's the best. And I'm just so excited to say he's my friend. And this record has been an incredible life-changing experience for all of us. So
well, I think there's more good things to come from it. So
thanks, man.
yeah.
Right.
And I really hope that, one of the cool things about this record is that people either love it or they're like, why does this freaking exist?
Right.
And, that's actually the sign of a good record, because
Right. Well, I'm sure
nothing
some
is
people are
worse
very
than when people
precious.
just say, this is nice, and they forget about it. I think this is a record that's got people talking. And it's not designed to be a replacement of your original Ram, but it's designed to be a nice complementary other look of the record. And people dig it. And something that is really cool is that we have confirmation that Paul digs it. So
Wonderful.
I mean, we wouldn't mind some photographic evidence, maybe,
Well,
or
maybe he'll break out his phone and dance around while he's listening to it or something. That'd be really cool. I'll send you the video.
yeah, Paul. No, but you know what, man? The bottom line is, it's part of the album's history, and that is something that I'm still mind blown about. So we did good, and now it exists, and it's coming out, and people dig it, and ram on.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, that's awesome. You're the only one that's ever done this, Fern. That's
Well,
cool.
yeah, there's been a couple of others, but they were done in a different way. Dave Depper from Def Cab for Cutie did a version of Ram where he played all the instruments and sang all the vocals.
Okay.
But he did it very lo-fi. And it's really cool. It's called the Ram Project. And then a group of musicians in the Netherlands with our friend, our mutual friend, Mike Viola, who we actually asked, but he didn't. He had a time constraint. He did it with a bunch of guys in the Netherlands called Pure McCartney, which was a concert.
Jesper Lind was one of the leaders of that group too.
Yeah,
Great drummer, man.
yeah, and they did a concert that they released as a DVD. And then there was a radio station that did something called Ram on LA, that was a bunch of bands, and they basically said, fuck these songs up. And all of this, if you listen to those versions, they do ballads fast, they do rockers slow, they completely threw the book out on them. And it's cool, but we wanted to do something a little more faithful. So
yeah, and you did. Yeah.
Thank you. We had we had a blast doing this. So many smiles, so many great moments, so many passionate stories, so many cases where people, they were able to get over adversity and make magic. So here we are.
Love it. So folks, pick it up. Our good friends at Cherry Red Records have it for you. So drop by their site and grab it.
Yeah, it's available on Amazon, Target, a bunch of different places. You could order it from your favorite record store. And
There you go. Yeah. So this has got good distribution.
Great distribution. And it's 28-page booklet too.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
Very nice. You get a picture of Eric Dover with a flower in his mouth.
Yeah.
And a
Doing
whole
a little
lot
Red
more.
Rose Speedway thing.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, no doubt.
Plus vinyl coming for Christmas.
Christmas, we get vinyl.
I was going to ask if there was vinyl. Excellent.
So yeah, we basically said, you know, we'd love to do vinyl. And they're like, well, if we sell enough copies of the CD, we'll do vinyl. The other day we had a Zoom in England, and they said, we'll do vinyl. So we're looking at doing vinyl for Christmas. So
They're shearing up those rams for the vinyl. You know what I'm saying?
hey, but it's going to be awesome, and we're going to have some extra stuff on it, and it's going to be really cool. And we can't wait. It's going to be great.
Well, before you guys wrap it up, Denny, would you have time to talk about a few more Wings tunes that you're part of?
Hurry up. I was a young man when I got here.
Oh! If there's one thing about Sean is that these things always go a little long because he's always bringing up all the good shit because he's a great interviewer. And this is like the how many interviews have you done this year?
How many of these have done? I started this show because of COVID last year. My first show was in the 1st of May, and this is the 92nd episode.
Wow.
And he's had some heavies on here. Billy Cobham.
Last week,
Billy
Cobham, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
How is he doing? He's a dear friend, but I know he's going through some stuff.
He's
getting better.
He's over in Switzerland. He seemed to be doing fine. He's got a new drum channel. It's called Billy Cobham's Approach to Stress-Free Drumming.
Yeah.
And he's got him on there, and Gary Husband, and a couple other guys, world-class friends of his. So it's I think maybe Dennis Chambers is on there.
Sure.
So it's kind of like, you know, you can get lessons from any of those guys. So yeah, he had some great stories to share, definitely. But yeah, doing this show has been, it kind of saved my ass, man. You know, I lost my job and then got locked up, and it's like, well, what am I going to do? And well, I didn't expect to do this at all. It just kind of happened.
Somebody had other plans.
Yeah, life happens while you
aren't making. About the pandemic is that we all learned how to make lemons out of lemonade. Made a lemonade out of lemons.
I mean, this really changed my life for the better, and I don't think it ever would have happened had these circumstances not happened. So
you're becoming a celebrity, Sean.
Oh shucks.
You're gonna be the Doctor. You're gonna be the Ellen DeGeneres of rock interviews.
I like to think I'm more the Dick Cavett. So it's like
Dick Cavett.
Yeah,
you're the Jimmy Fallon.
There you go. That works for me. So I want to hear about Live and Let Die. You know, everybody's seen the video where you guys are like playing at some TV studio and the piano blows up and all that. What was that all about?
Oh, okay. First off, I'll tell you that part first. That was a James Paul McCartney TV special. And they told us before the take, when they filmed that segment, they said, be careful because the stunt guys that loaded up the piano with the dynamite or whatever, the thing that blew up at the end of Live and Let Die, they said the piano is going to blow up and fall in on itself, right? So they told us that much. But somebody mentioned to me, he said, be careful, those guys always overload the charge. So, you know, we're playing to Live and Let Die, and then whoosh, this thing blows up. And Paul was sitting about 3 feet back, so it looked like he was at the piano, but he was afraid of it too. So he was sitting. The angle didn't show on the film, but he wasn't playing the piano. He was like 3 feet back, and I was hiding. I had the cymbals, and I was like shielding myself with the cymbals. When this fucking thing blew, it blew so big that it swept Henry right off of his feet. Took him right off his feet, man. And the lid of the piano, the baby grand lid, was made out of balsa wood, you know, so it was really light. And this thing blew up, and it was a ball of flame, and it went up and over the string players. These old guys with their Stradivariuses and wigs, you know. I mean, and they had no idea what was happening. So there's this ball of flame, explosion, ball of flame, right over their heads. I thought somebody was going to have a heart attack for sure.
This could have been a very tragic moment in the history of Denny Seiwell.
It could have been, man. I'll tell you. And I watched Paul write that song. That was the other thing I wanted. And we were all up at the house, and we had our instruments in the living room. We were just, you know, maybe going to have a quick rehearsal or something. But he said, oh, I got to write this song for the next Bond film. And I read the book the other night, so let me see what this I come up with. And he sat down. James Bond, chase scene. So he did that a couple of times, and he said, that's pretty good. And he said, I got to write a melody. When we were young. So he writes a melody, and he says, oh, shit, this takes place in Jamaica. There's got to get some reggae in there. Say, what did it matter to you? So within 10, 15 minutes, he wrote the damn song. Now we're in the living room with our instruments, and we're trying to figure out the best parts to play. Henry and Denny and Linda, and we're just fooling around. He must have run a 2-track or something when we kind of got it. He got a little recording of our rehearsal, sent it over to George Martin. George Martin does his magic and writes the orchestra. A couple of days later, we get the call, we're going in to record it today. So we go into Air Studios, George's studio in London, and we had a live 40-piece orchestra.
Nice.
So, I mean, it wasn't band and then orchestra, it was live. We were playing live with the orchestra. Ray Cooper was on percussion playing the timpani. Ba-da-ba-ba-boom, da-da-da-ba-boom. You know, that was Ray Cooper. And in the middle of the reggae bit, you'll hear a duck call. Quack, quack, quack. That's Ray Cooper too. So we did that track in and out of the studio, overdubbed, mixed, finished in 3 hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it became like, personally, I think it's the greatest Bond theme, and it's got some stiff competition. I mean, right up there with Goldfinger and a few others, you know. But
Well,
it
was number one until Adele's song came along, and she took number one as a Bond theme.
well, that's cool.
yeah,
And it's interesting,
Skyfall, Sky
you know,
Schmall.
it doesn't have that. It doesn't have the big cliche in it, at least not directly. That every other one, you know, the rising fifth.
Oh yeah.
He didn't fall for that one, you know.
Yeah, Paul did his own thing, and I have a question, Denny. What went through your mind when you first heard the Guns N' Roses version?
I was going to ask.
Oh, I said, what the hell's my buddy Matt Sorum? I said, what the hell, did he steal our version? Musically, they just went to cop it, you know. And I didn't spend a lot of time really listening to it, you know, just in case. I didn't want to get a resentment, you know, but I thought, okay, they're paying tribute to it, and Axel's going to give it a whole different vibe than Paul would have given it, which he did. And that's okay. It's nothing great. I don't think it's stuck in anybody's memory.
Yeah,
Well, it's in mine.
It's no
in
patch
mine
on the
because-
original.
Because I got taunted by a lot of my friends in high school and in middle school because I wasn't listening to all the cool music. And it happened twice. Once was when all these Pearl Jam kids were taunting me because I love Neil Young. And they're like, because I won a talent show in middle school singing, you know, oh, to be in Sugar Mountain. And they're like, who's this hippie kid? And one day on the MTV Music Awards, out comes Neil Young playing Rockin' in the Free World
Yep.
with Pearl Jam. And suddenly I was cool as shit.
Yeah.
It happened again
Yeah.
because I wasn't into Guns N' Roses. I was not into Metallica. I was not into all my friends in high school. They were these like metalheads, and they were obsessed with Megadeth, Metallica, Pantera, Joe Satriani, Steve Vai. They had these pointy guitars, and I was there with my SG feeling like a complete schmuck. And when Guns N' Roses came out with Live and Let Die, it was another I Told You So. And I'm like, you remember that kid you used to beat up with the Abbey Road t-shirt? Well, turns out your idols like all this shit too. So it was fun. It was like an I Told You So moment where it's like, man,
Yeah.
Guns N' Roses were the hottest shit in town.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
they're doing freaking Live and Let Die? How cool did you feel, Denny?
Well, I mean, you know, Guns N' Roses meant nothing to me, to tell you the truth. They really didn't. My friend Matt was playing drums with them. He got a shitty deal, and that's all I can say about that band, you know.
Fair enough. Well, if anything, it introduced that song to a new generation. So
Yeah, I guess so. I guess
it's
so.
good for that
But
reason.
I like what we're doing here, introducing this to maybe a fourth and fifth generation that have never heard Ram.
Yeah. And introducing some of these younger musicians in the process as well. So
I can't wait to meet all. We have to get, now that we're starting to open up after June 15th, we should have some sort of a party where we can get everybody.
Well, for once, we should have the LA people, and
Yeah,
we'll have a big get together.
And then zoom in the out of towns.
Yeah, that'll be fun. That'll be that's a great idea. That's a great idea, Denny. We should do
And
that.
then film the whole damn thing.
Yeah, there you
I
go.
get the record company to pay for it.
Yeah, there we go.
You.
What would you say, Sean? What did you say, Sean?
I just got one more tune I wanted to ask about. I wanted to ask about My Love because that's another biggie that you were one of the greatest
Okay.
love songs ever.
It is. And at the time I thought, yeah, okay.
Right, nothing.
You know, and then we recorded it. And again, it was kind of like Uncle Albert for me. It needed all of that space. I loved all of that space that I could put in there. And I said, drummers ain't gonna like this because there's not enough going on. But you know what? Every drummer loved it. And it was every time I turned on the damn radio, you'd go across the dial and you'd hear My Love 15 times, you know.
Oh yeah, dude. How many times do you hear yourself at Walgreens?
And cats would come up to me and they'd say, how did you get that feel on My Love? Our band tried to do a cover of it. We couldn't do it. And I said, I just, you know, I got that clock in my head. It's not a click. It's a clock in my head. It's called a heart, a heartbeat. And I said, I don't know how I did it, but it really gathered a lot of respect. And some years later, 2003 actually, Henry and I were in Liverpool. It was the first time I'd seen Henry since we left the band.
Wow.
And we were asked to do an appearance at a Beatlefest in Liverpool. And we played the Court Theater with a cover band that knew all Wings material. I forget the name of it, Bob Barty or something like that. And it was really a nice setting, a beautiful theater where the Beatles played. And Henry left the band over that song. Paul was pushing him into the corner to play that guitar solo exactly every time we performed that.
Magical guitar solo.
It was, but Henry was too organic to go for it. And it was one of those rotten days where it was the straw that broke the camel's back and Henry decided to leave the band. But here we are years later performing that song, Henry and I, and we both have tears running down our face because it was about Linda. Linda's not there, she's gone. And he played that guitar solo more beautiful than I ever heard him play that guitar solo.
That's awesome.
It's still one of my fondest memories in life, and I really miss Henry. We were really tight when he came into the band. Henry and I were very close, very close.
Well, tell the story about how he saved your life that one day with the overpass.
Oh, we started the European tour, and we had a British double-decker bus with mattresses on the top deck for sunbathing through the south of France, you know.
Sure.
And you know, we're all in the bus. You know, it's the first day on the bus, and we're going somewhere. And I'm standing up, having a cigarette, and we're laughing and joking and screwing around. And all of a sudden, someone wraps their arm around me and tackles me and pulls me down. And it was Henry, because there was an overpass that would have taken my head clean off.
Man.
Even at 35 miles an hour, which is all the faster that bus went. But yeah.
This is a great way to end. Denny Seiwell, you survived exploding pianos,
Yeah,
No
overpasses.
doubt.
just south of France.
Yeah, in the south of France.
I do have
Yeah.
one last question though. You know, you were the first of many drummers in that Wings drum seat. I'm wondering how many of your successors you've met.
Steve Holley and I are very good friends. I love Steve Holley. He's a great musician, a great player, a great singer. He lives across from my old building in New York. He could see my apartment, I could see his.
Oh, that's
And his wife or his girlfriend is French. So, hey.
Yeah, Denny's been married to his wife for what now? 50?
No, 55 years at Thanksgiving time. November 26th, it's 55. Right now it's 54.
And she is awesome. French, wonderful, always smiling.
That's wonderful.
She hasn't figured it out yet, you know. But Steve and I are very close, and we played together on a couple of Beatlefests where Mark Lapidus had Steve and I work together with the band Liverpool. It was sensational. I mean, I really got along great with
He's
him.
great. Yeah, I saw him.
And
Song with Denny
Roger. I mean, I also knew what was his name? The guy from Georgia,
Joe English.
Joe English. I knew him a little bit, but then he left, and I lost touch with him. I heard back from him a couple of years ago. He called me out of the blue, and he said he was thinking about coming out of retirement, and could I help? And I offered my help, and that's the last I heard from him.
He unfortunately has gotten involved with a very heavy religious group that condones any type of drumming, guitar playing. The only thing they allow is singing and keyboard playing. And there's a weird video that's been going around of him singing extreme religious music, but he's singing in the top of his lungs, and he's all clean cut, and yeah, he's super Jesus right now.
That's interesting. Well, I love that band he was in, Sea Level, down here.
Sea Level.
Like the Dixie Dregs meets the Allman Brothers, and that's a damn nice combo.
So you never met Jeff Britton?
No,
Your replacement?
no, or the other Chris Whitten. I never met him either.
Yeah, but you're tight with Abe.
Pardon?
You know Abe?
Oh yeah, Abe. Abe is a dear friend of mine. And the last time I saw, well, they were in town to do the Shea Stadium. They were in town to do Dodger Stadium, and Paul invites me down. So Monique and I go down to we're backstage with Paul before the show, and he says, Abe is all beside himself because he's so nervous because he got to play Live and Let Die in front of you,
That's fun.
And Abe, I've known him since he was a little kid. I used to work with his dad all the time. In fact, I did a Neil Young record with Abe and this great guitar player produced it. Oh geez, he's dead now. Paul Gold was his name. He had a lot of hits with Linda Ronstadt and all.
Oh no, yeah, Andrew Gold.
Andrew Gold.
Yeah,
he's awesome.
Andrew, and we also did a record with a lot of records anyway. I got
well, Denny's only showing some of his gold records. Come on, move the camera a little bit, buddy. You're holding out on him.
These are just the McCartney ones.
This is what I tell everybody: is that the best soundproofing is gold records.
And the platinum ones are even better.
Yeah. Yeah, you've had a nice life, Denny.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both for coming by and talking about this labor of love. I'm so enjoying it, and I appreciate you taking the time to give us the skinny on every track and more.
Well, this has been an incredible experience, and we're excited to do more of these, and we're excited that we feed off of the energy from everyone, and your enthusiasm towards the record has been great. And I was telling Denny that Sean's an incredible musician, so he's going to have more of a musician standpoint, because a lot of the people we've been doing interviews with are Beatle nuts, and they're extreme on the trivia, but you brought a little bit of that musician vibe in. So thank you so much, man.
Oh, my pleasure.
And you hold the record. It's 2 hours. We have never done an interview for 2 hours.
This is just a late night chat, like you're hanging at the music store after hours or something.
You're a good hang, brother.
At Southern.
Southern,
whatever. Yeah.
Southern hospitality.
Well, maybe we'll do a little Ram On tour, and we'll do a little show in Atlanta, and you could help us put together a band of guys down there.
Love to make it happen. Yeah.
Sean actually, the whole name of his show is from his band that puts together big tributes, and they do full albums, and they do all sorts of stuff, and they're very, very cool. And it'll be fun to do a Ram show down there. I have a lot of
some original music too that sounds a bit like Steely Dan if Neil from Rush sat in and Donald Fagen had laryngitis. It's all instrumental. Yeah.
But that's the thing, is that Sean is one of us. He's a great player, and he's got incredible wealth of knowledge. So you've been doing this thing lately that I love, which is the back-to-back thing.
Yeah, where
you've been talking about albums.
Yeah, basically two records that came back to back chronologically.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of are totally different, and it's hard to compare them, or they're so damn close it's really hard to just pick what your favorite. So
a good one would be Wildlife Red Rose Speedway, because that's a really cool to watch.
I can do that.
Wings. It's really cool to watch Wings develop from Paul's idea of a garage band. Sure. Returning to that concept of this band playing colleges, to this full-fledged touring monster, which by the time Denny left, I mean, they were a well-oiled machine, you know.
Arena rock ready. Or darn.
Well, before that, they were playing these big shows with a big screen, and it was awesome. It was awesome, and luckily, all that stuff was recorded. So, good times.
Well, I should tell everybody who's coming up this week. Tuesday night, it's my birthday, and I'm turning 54. But I'd like to say I'm 37 again.
When I'm 54.
Exactly. Man. Damn, it's bump, baba doo doo. Yeah, and then and I'm going to be guesting on my friend Pete Pardo's show on the Sea of Tranquility YouTube channel.
Are you going to be in the prog seat?
Huh? What's that?
Are you
I'm
gonna be
in the prog seat once again.
Wow.
And I'm kind of becoming a regular on there about once every 3 weeks. And this week we're talking about our favorite multi-instrumentalists. I got 5 to choose from, or to offer, I should say.
Nice.
And you could probably guess who my number 1 is. Or your number 1 as well.
Might be my number 1 too.
Yeah, you think.
But Paul's definitely like tied with that guy.
Oh yeah, Paul's on there too. You know, definitely.
Yeah, he's a badass.
Yeah.
But and then when are you going to talk with the guys from Styx?
We're still cooking that one. I'm talking with the PR lady. She sent me the album. It's like they said, we don't give a damn about sounding like ourselves. Just make the best record we can. Let's aim for Queen or Pink Floyd quality. And I think they did it.
That's awesome.
So it's like, yeah, who wants a record that sounds like their 70s ones? We already got those. It's like,
yeah.
If you're 40 years on, just do whatever the hell you want and make
That's the beauty of the record industry these days, is that, you know, the record labels are no longer the ones dictating what the albums are sounding like anymore. Yeah, so when record labels are no longer shelving albums because they don't hear a single, you're hearing more creativity from the artists, and there's a little more room for them to branch out. You know,
I never heard anything quite this quality from them, so I'm excited to talk about that. And somebody else I'm excited to talk to Tuesday afternoon, I'm chatting with Phil Manzanera. You know,
Roxy Music.
Nice. Oh man, 801 with Simon Phillips. Remember that, Dan?
Yeah, The Quiet Sun too. You should check that stuff out.
Love that. Yeah, and then of course
Really cool.
with playing with David Gilmour for the past 15 or 20 years.
Oh yeah, incredible player.
Rocking venues like Pompeii. You know,
must be nice.
Yeah, well, you're David Gilmour. You can play anywhere you want, I guess.
Cool, man.
But here's a little exclusive for you, since you've been such a great guy.
Well, thank you.
You'll probably get a kick out of this. I've been doing some tracks with a guy named Davy Johnstone.
Sure.
He wrote a whole solo record, and it's you know, they're talking with a label right now, but I've just done 2 or 3 tracks with him. We have 2 or 3 more left to do, but you're really going to be surprised at this. Talk about Queen meets Beatles. Queen, you know, he's really tapped into some extraordinary stuff, and I'm really excited for him, and I'm glad I could be a part of it.
Okay. Awesome. This is the Davy Johnstone from
Davy Johnstone. Yep.
Cool. You know, we had
he's a badass.
You know, I had a couple weeks ago. I don't know if you know who John Jorgensen is, but he was
very well.
Elton Band as well. Yeah, he was on here a couple weeks ago. Man,
and David Payton. Yeah, David Payton on also from the
David Payton on as well. Yeah. It's like it all kind of ties together in a funny way. You know, it's all.
I did the White Album with Jorgensen it was last year, just before the COVID, at the Grammy Museum. We had about, I don't know, 20 or 30 guys. We did the White Album, played the whole White Album. It was phenomenal. And I got to hang quite a bit with John Jorgensen.
Yeah, great, man. He's like, you ever heard him do the Django Reinhardt Gypsy Jazz? I mean, nobody's better at that than John.
Yeah, he's a badass.
He's got it going on.
Another guy who also played, also was in Elton's band. Yeah. So yeah, how about that?
All right.
Well, that was a fun way to spend the Saturday night. Thanks, guys.
Really, I thoroughly enjoyed it. You guys take care. Come back anytime. And
say hi, Cindy.
Hey, Cindy. How are you, darling? Good to see you. All right, y'all take care. And I'll be back Tuesday afternoon talking to Phil Manzanera about 4 p.m. Eastern. Y'all take care.
Thanks, Sean.
We'll see you. Have a good week.
Ram on, brother.
All right.
Ram on.